Okay, so if we go to today's topic, align software changes to business outcomes, a practical guide to value stream management. So it's my pleasure to introduce our two expert speakers today. We're going to discuss why organizations are increasingly adopting value stream management and also show you some AI-assisted techniques that accelerate software delivery within the VSM framework. So firstly, we have Aurora Gaimon. So Aurora is a technology workflow solution consultant with ServiceNow, which really means she works with ServiceNow's enterprise clients to transform their software delivery. So if you follow Aurora on LinkedIn, and you really should, you'll know that she's incredibly passionate, knowledgeable, and enthusiastic about value stream management, about DevOps change philosophy, and generally about ensuring that enterprise software changes deliver value to their businesses. So thanks for joining us today, Aurora. So we also have our Curiosity CEO and co-founder, James Walker. So James is really dedicated the last decade plus to helping large enterprises achieve the agility of nimble startups, whilst also maximizing quality across the whole software delivery ecosystem. So he's developed new tools for requirements diagramming and test generation. And in recent years, he's really focused intensely on applying generative AI to enterprise software delivery. So you'll see some of James's new innovations today during the live demo. Before we get into that, I'd like us to maybe have a quick glance at the poll results. So we just bring those up on the screen for you. So we asked, what's stopping your business from delivering valuable software to its users? And we gave 6 options there, and we've got a spread of results through, So I don't know, James and Aurora, if you want to comment on this, is it aligned with what you see out there in the market?
Yeah, so thanks for having me here. I was just checking out the results of the poll, and this is so interesting. I know 6 options is a lot of options, but I long time ago, when I was much younger, I used to have, I did a little bit of development, and also I was pushing changes and requirement into production. And I was reading some of the options, and you have, like, for instance, we don't have good requirements. I remember that. And that's really to our human interaction, our capability to actually translate what the business or the use case is and actually translating requirements, which has nothing to do with tooling. Sometimes it's like, the person translating what the business needs to the technology is not doing a good job. Sometimes there is a disconnect. But I remember this one, always going back and asking for that. So I shared the pain many years ago. And then there is the other kind of pain that I see people are reporting. We have too many tools. So you spend a lot of time going to so many different tools, copy pasting. And this is what I call the DevOps tax or engineering tax, which is like copy pasting things from one side to another, which was taking like 30% of my time. And testing is slow. Yeah, I guess because a lot of manual processes and too many redundant tasks. And same thing for releases are slow. Of course, if you have certain phases that they're slow, like testing or maybe just pushing to production, finally doing the deployment, of course, the release is going to be really slow as well. So, James, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you, Aurora. It's amazing because, like yourself, I have a lot of these conversations with industry leaders. And I don't think I've ever heard a company say, my software delivery model is amazing. Everything's going perfect. It's all lined up. There's no problems at all. Like, every single person I talk to has one of these pains in some shape or form. And I think what's interesting is, there's almost an even split between every single one. And every single company is struggling with software at the moment. They're struggling with their delivery. They're struggling with speed. They're struggling with quality.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're going to talk a little bit today about how we can help solve those problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we can see that today, more than ever, the pace of innovation, how we can actually have to develop and push new code and new capabilities and features is faster than ever. I already talked with organizations and companies and customers long time ago, like just training your employees and saying, now you are agile, now you embrace DevOps, I'm done. It's not good enough. So embracement and sponsorship always have to come from leadership. And the whole transformation starts from top to bottom. So when we try to do the transformation, or when I see that a digital transformation or agile transformation starts from the bottom because, I have a DevOps team, and I have an agile team, now I can develop faster, that doesn't occur. And I think that, yeah, everyone knows what I'm talking about. Since Gen AI is in our lives, we can see how big companies, big organizations, I also have the conversations daily with my executives, with my customers. How do I embrace that innovation? How other customers are selecting the use case? How do I give priority? And how I just deliver a faster time to market and value? How do I do it, right? Well, first, you have to fix the foundations, maybe, right? So that's one of the things that we are going to be talking here today.
I think it's interesting as well, just before we get into the slides, a lot of these, there's symptoms and causes, right? A lot of these are the symptoms, they're not the causes. So it might be, testing is too slow. Testing too slow is not the root cause. Testing too slow could be because we don't have good enough requirements to begin with. It could be because we didn't do we didn't test early enough. We didn't set ourselves up for success. We left everything too late. So I think as we're going through the presentation today, it's definitely worth thinking about, okay, it's like going to the doctors, right? I have these symptoms, but is that actually the root cause? Is that actually what I need to be solving? And often it's just starting with why. Why am I doing this? What am I trying to achieve? What's the pain I have? How can I unlock that? How can I move forward?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. But yeah, good topic. So testing is slow and traceability is important and it's broken. And we know why. We will also talk about that. Good.
So why don't we hand over now to you, Aurora, to get going with the presentation, and thanks to everybody taking the time to vote with Paul.
Okay, I think now it's time to share, right? Okay, so I hope everyone can see my screen. I'm gonna make that bigger and nicer and beautiful for you. I made a spoiler so you know what is coming. But anyway, thank you for the presentation. Yes, I work at ServiceNow. Yes, I'm a big ambassador, evangelist, and I talk a lot about value stream management, being in the agile planning space for more than 15 years as well. But value stream management is not agile, and I will talk about that as well. So first of all, value stream management can be a buzzword, but it shouldn't. So it shouldn't be. But I see that it's being misused. I see that every time that I talk to an executive or a company, or even practitioners, depending on the role and the persona, the domain and the space, I get a different definition. And you will find so many different definitions. Maybe if you talk to technology users or business users, it's totally different. Or executives that they are more in the business side, or executives that they are more in the technical side. Again, the definition is going to be different. But there is just one simple definition, doesn't matter workspace, business, technical, is all this set of activities, tasks, everything that needs to be done, going from an idea to actually deliver the value to the consumer, to the end user. It can be an internal employee or it can be a customer, right? Period. That's what the definition is. If we go into the technology space, and I don't know if you heard about that or you're familiar with the IT for IT. IT for IT is everything we do in IT to actually support the business. And that means innovation and transformation, which is the plan and build that you see in the loop. And then you have the other side that is we have to keep the lights on, which means your operations operate, and then service, which is all the IT service management space, right? So that's how I like to talk, and that's how I talk because I'm at ServiceNow. That's usually the kind of conversations that we talk is more in the technology side. So why do we get so many different definitions, or why there is so much confusion? I really like to talk with my customers and organizations to understand also what is their journey and maturity adoption in the value stream management. And from ServiceNow, we have this high-level maturity scale where you can actually see more or less where you are. And again, depending on the persona, if I talk to the VP of engineering or development, then our value stream management is going to be focusing on build and actually deliver, right? Or more in the build. So everything that has to do, like all these requirements, all your different stories, everything that I need to plan on my different sprints or whatever methodology you use. And then I have to build it, and then I have to test it. It can be slow, and then I have to deploy it, right? A lot of things happen here that then everything is going to be very slow. And this is the engineering value stream, but you can say value stream. And that's where we're going to focus here today. But value stream is more than that. So from ServiceNow, we also cover a second level. And here's what I talk more to CTOs or VP of infrastructure. And then we include the keep the lights on, the operations. Okay, we deliver this service or product or digital product. We have to keep the lights on, and we have to prevent any kind of disruption. We have to troubleshoot if we have a disruption, make sure that the services or the product is up and running. That's the operational value stream. But then we go beyond, the other way around. And we talk about value stream management in the service space or service management space. So if you talk to a chief product officer or product managers, for them, they also have to include the prioritization of the budget. You will have a specific budget for that specific product or value stream. People use the same words. And how do I select the right use cases? How do I allocate the budget in the right initiatives, being aligned with the business goals and strategies of the company? I do all my build, I deploy it, I keep the lights on, but I also have to service the user. So if they have an incident, a problem, they need support, we can actually support them. And then the last, I'm very confused today. And then the last level, which is the highest maturity from our standpoint of view, is this business or the whole value stream management, which is going from that idea, just an idea, not even a business case, an idea, where finally go and deliver that to the customer. So the whole end-to-end, going from everything that I said and also providing this customer service management. So really, really depends to the persona you're talking. But again, this is a journey. And this one, it will never start from the top. You have a maturity, you start from here, and then you start expanding. How do you start expanding? Well, that's the thing. You will have a lot of challenges. The VSM Consortium is running every year a survey. It's public, you can go download it. These results are from 2022 because I found it was very significant. As I said, any transformation starts from leadership. So if you don't have buy-in from leadership, from the top, it's not going to happen, okay? Maybe you have a very motivated team who wants to do things, but buy-in has to come from the top. They have to make it happen. And then from a tooling perspective, and you also put that in the poll, there are too many tools. And sometimes you even have duplicates. And these tools, they are in silos. How is the information flowing from one to another? Right? Do I have to go to several ones? Everything should be connected, seamless, and I should be just working in one or two spaces or workspaces, and I should not worry about the rest. That should be ideal, but it's not happening. And this is going back to what you mentioned in the poll, the traceability. Traceability is broken. It's hard then to understand when we push a change, something happens, we don't have the product or the service up and running, or there is a performance issue. How do we know what happened? How do we gather all the evidences? Who pushed the change? What happened, right? So that didn't change. Over time, it's changing, but I thought it was really significant. Again, if you want to know more, you can go and download it. It's public information. And what we see is that evolution in the market, that we try to reduce the tools, we try to connect everything together, and more we see companies increasing adoption for a single platform. So ServiceNow is one of these players. And we also see a significant adoption also from our customers embracing value stream management frameworks. Now, what do we do? Yeah, we are ServiceNow, a platform that has one single database with a layer of different use cases and solutions. Everything is natively connected. That's what ServiceNow is doing, is the enterprise workflow engine to eliminate silos amongst the different global functions and amongst the different teams. And all our out-of-the-box solutions are natively connected, so you don't have to integrate anything. That sounds easy. But you have so many different personas, so many different spaces. Think about service management, operations, then you have development. You might have also enterprise architects. You have customer service management. You have so many different teams and so many different tools. How do we connect all these logical layers of information and collaboration amongst these people and these different tooling? I want to mention Ian Loy is one of my colleagues here at ServiceNow. He's a brilliant mind, an enterprise architect. He was the leading of that architectural blueprint, and he gathered a bunch of experts, and one of them, I was covering the agile thing and amongst other things. And we were together and we decided to create an agnostic. Of course, it's been pushed and it's been branded with ServiceNow, and we mapped all our different features and capabilities, but it's supposed to be agnostic. So you can take this architectural blueprint and actually map it in your company to understand, okay, what are we using in that space? What are the different teams and how we should map it together to actually achieve this end-to-end value stream management. So that's what we have done. The reason why I'm not showing it is because it's huge and you need a magnifier to see it, and it is very overwhelming. But we do have a lot of content where we have videos and a walkthrough how you should be approaching or embracing value stream management. It's a journey. And also this blueprint is a live document. So that means that we try to update it every 6 months, but let's go to say we have a new release every year to embrace maybe new features and capabilities. Like we have updated also like how Gen AI it plays a role in the whole ecosystem of tools, features and capabilities and teams. So we cover FinOps, we cover operations, we cover absolutely everything in the IT for IT space to map it to your business value stream management. It's not industry centric yet. We thought about that. Things, works in progress, things and ideas that we have. But right now, this one is a standard. It should work for all industries. And it took us a significant amount of time. So there is quite a lot of work and thinking around that. So we will share the links and the content with you. Feel free to download it. And we are also welcome to receive feedback, comments, improvements, or things that you don't agree. Now, why then is so difficult to scale? Well, as I said, traceability. When you have an engineer or someone working in development, and you have to tell them that you have to collect all the evidences, go and create a change request, and now copy paste that, and make sure you don't forget anything. That's going to require quite a lot of time and effort. And you know what? You don't want to do that. I didn't want to do that. My customers and engineers, teams that I talk, they don't want to do that. When you tell them that you can automate all of that, this is fantastic. But majority of companies, they did not automate. So then it's difficult, really difficult to scale because everything, information is getting lost, the evidences, the artifacts, the test results, everything. And then we have people that they just don't follow the process like I used to do. Why do I need to log a change request? I don't want to log it. You know, it's time consuming. I'm just pushing a change request. It's not even production. I don't want to register that. I skip it. Well, that's not good. And also even in production, sometimes you skip the process where you shouldn't. Because as soon as you have an auditing exercise or you just want to track back what happened because you have a performance issue, that's going to be really, really hard. And the third one is, we already mentioned, right? We have DevOps and Agiles. It's taken too long, either because of the testing, either because I have to log a change request. Yeah, that's what we see. And again, value stream management, sponsorship comes from the top, but the foundation comes from the bottom. So you start with your engineering. So what do we do? As I said, we don't try to replace all the tools in the market. You have your DevOps ecosystem, your CI/CD pipeline with all your different tooling. It can be curiosity software. It can be your Jira. You can have your GitHub for your code. It can be any tool that you have in your whole ecosystem. We don't try to replace it. What we try to do is the following. As soon as you have to log a change request, we automate that. You don't have to do it. The engineers, the developers, they should not worry about that. So we collect absolutely all the evidences, all the artifacts, all the test results, all the commits, every single thing that happens in your CI/CD pipeline. We automatically create a change request. We document everything, and then you create rules. Based on my customer experience and also my personal experience, an average of 80% of the change request, they should not go through a manual human cap approval. They could actually be auto-approved because they don't have an impact. It's a small cosmetic change, or maybe, the impact is not really high. So you can define your own rules, and then we can automate that process. And this is where the benefit comes. Once, because we automatically create the change and gather all the artifacts, evidences, and everything that you need for traceability. And second, because we have the auto-approval. And then because we have all the information, an extra thing we can offer is all these metrics. Metrics in this end-to-end, your flow metrics, your DORA metrics, anything that you do. So that's in a nutshell. Why do we have so many challenges to embrace value stream management? Again, sponsorship from the top, transformation from the top, but you start with the foundation. You have to have a good engineering value stream management. And those are kind of the first steps. So what do you think, James?
I love it. Right, let me share the screen. I think you need to unshare first. come in. There we go. Hopefully you can see that as I'm coming through.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, good. Yeah, so thank you, Aurora. That was fantastic. So I think, yeah, I've been in the industry now for about 15 years, working in software specifically. And I think over that time, I've really seen the struggle that enterprises are having with software, right? And it's exactly the same noises that are being made from the beginning of that journey to where we are now. And I think I met Aurora and the ServiceNow team, I think it was about 6 months ago now, if I'm not mistaken. We had a very long conversation. It really resonated with me. And that was start with value, focus on delivering value, understand the value. And it kind of makes sense, right? Like how many features are delivered which add zero value? How many activities happen throughout the software development lifecycle that are inefficient and fundamentally just negate value from the overall process and slow down what we're doing, right? So that really resonated with me. I loved it. And obviously here we are today doing the webinar. But I want to pick up one piece of that value stream management that we're looking at. And that's kind of how can you align and accelerate your software delivery ecosystem? Okay. So if I take a step back and think about software, okay, and if I think about some of the organizations that we're working with, some of the conversations we're having, what I want to do is I want you to think about the software development lifecycle. Now, a lot of you will be familiar with, the big circle that's there, or you'll be familiar with, the DevOps kind of infinity symbol. What I want to do is I want to split up software delivery into two concepts, and I want those concepts to be called the inner and outer loop. Okay. Now, the inner loop is kind of the world of the developer. So we're creating code, we're debugging, we're building in our IDE. Eventually, we're creating pull requests and we're pushing them into our source control. Okay. Now, if you look at this inner loop holistically, it's kind of seen the most attention. Whenever you talk to organizations, it's all about developer productivity. That's kind of the top metric everyone's kind of measuring. And it's the same if you look at the industry just generally, right? Almost all innovation, all budget is in developer tooling. We've got all of these amazing IDEs with code completion. We've got all of these libraries that exist in the world that people are buying. More recently, we've got all these coding co-pilots that are appearing. And now we're kind of seeing a lot of these kind of AI agents that are coming out that can potentially code for us. So the result is, under the right conditions, that inner loop of developers and coding and everything can be extremely productive. It can be extremely fast. Okay. Everything that kind of wraps around that process is what I would refer to as the outer loop. So, it's requirements, it's data, it's test cases, it's CI/CD, everything that's wrapping around our kind of developer, ecosystem that exists. Okay. So it's supporting the creation of the eventual end deliverable of software. So what you basically have is you have this inner loop of developers that are extremely reliant on the outer loop, right? There's this continuous need to feed developers with, good requirements that are high quality and clear, okay? There's a need to keep feeding the whole ecosystem with test data that's compliant. When features come through, we have to test them. Before we release, we have to perform regression testing, et cetera, okay? Now, what we're seeing in organizations, and I think this resonates a lot with the poll we had at the beginning, there's a massive imbalance between the inner and outer loop at the moment. And what we're typically seeing is that the outer loop, firstly, is becoming a bottleneck, which kind of affects overall speed. But then secondly, what we end up seeing happening is as pressure builds that we have to move faster, deliver more, et cetera, we see corners being cut in the outer loop, which ultimately reduces quality and productivity across the entire life cycle, right? So, requirements being bad, that ends up slowing down development, right? And I think worse yet, what we're seeing now on the horizon, everyone's seeing in the news all these AI developments that are being made around, AI being able to code for us, all of these AI agents that are coming out. I think that imbalance is actually going to amplify. There's going to be even more demand for higher quality requirements, because if we're going to have AI code for us, we sure need good requirements to feed into that ecosystem. The inner loop is going to be even faster. It's going to place even more of a demand for assets on the outer loop. We're going to have an even bigger reliance on testing, because guess what? AI produces buggy code that has hallucinations in. It's relatively untrusted. So we have to have more of an ecosystem around that for testing it as well. I was just reading an article the other day that was saying we can now get coding down to 1 day for a feature. Just pick an arbitrary feature. But then actually everything that wraps around that, all the testing, we actually spend 2 days testing that code. So it's kind of double the ratio between it. Now, we obviously speak to a lot of organizations, and I don't think any of these pain points or any of this is kind of new information. If I flip back 15 years ago to when I first started and where we are now, and I think Derek just posted a comment in the chat about his journey beginning, you often hear noises like testing is too slow. Our release cadences are always getting pushed out. We're always firefighting Sev1 defects. We can't hire good enough developers. Our team is working in silos. Like, these are fundamentally the same problems that everyone has been having over the past 15 years, right? I would classify these as almost superficial symptoms. And what I've seen in a lot of organizations is we basically end up layering on kind of quick fix solutions or painkiller solutions per se, right? Testing is too slow. Let's go and buy an automation tool and introduce lots of test automation. We're always firefighting Sev1 issues. So let's go out. All of our capacity is being spent on firefighting essentially. So we need to go and increase our headcount in our development team. Okay. None of these solutions are actually fixing the root cause of what the problem is. And what we're seeing is actually the root cause is too much of a focus on the inner loop, developer productivity, and not enough focus on making the outer loop efficient and effective. Okay. So let's think about a few of these. Testing is too slow. Okay, let's put that in the inner outer loop context. Why is testing too slow? It's because we didn't do enough earlier to set ourselves up for success. We left testing right until the end. Development moved extremely quickly. They were extremely efficient. So now we have this humongous amount of features that have come out that we have to test. All of a sudden, we're a backlog. We're delaying the entire release, right? We can't hire good enough talent. Well, why do we need good talent? We need amazing talent because our requirements weren't good enough in the beginning. They were unclear. They were ambiguous. And what our development team has ended up spending a lot of time doing is actually going off and having meetings with stakeholders to go and get clarity over the requirements. And all of a sudden now we've made the whole SDLC extremely inefficient, and we've slowed everything down as a result, right? So we're seeing a lot of problems which are linking back to this whole inner outer loop narrative. And in summary, it's mostly because organizations are so focused on developer productivity, they're missing the entire ecosystem and the value of everything wrapping around with requirements, test, data, CI/CD, and everything from it. Okay. Now, we created Curiosity with the intention of really coming in and solving these challenges. And we want to undertake a paradigm shift basically in the organization. We want to shift the focus away from focusing on this inner loop back onto focusing on the outer loop and making that more efficient, right? And there's two things we've specifically been focusing on. We focus on test data. So making available test data in the organization, which is compliant and is rich, but also specifically around software quality. Okay. And what we're thinking about is how can we make the organization more quality centric? Okay. Aligning everyone on quality goals and working towards high quality standards. Now, what we have found in organizations is that if you start early with quality, initially at the requirements phases, so you're creating requirements which are complete, they're unambiguous, you're getting everyone on the same page, then you can feed developers with solid requirements to get started with. Okay. We've also found that shifting left is also incredibly beneficial. So generating all your assets up front, generating your test data earlier, generating your test cases, generating your automation as early as possible so there isn't a dependency later on. Okay. By shifting left, you can introduce critical thinking much earlier. So you're having your testing team inside the requirement scoping meetings, inside your requirement definitions, etc. And really what you're doing there is you're trying to get transparency much earlier into the requirements. You're starting to interrogate them much earlier, and you're starting to look for ambiguities much earlier so that you can potentially identify defects before they've even occurred much later on. Now, the way we've been doing this over the years is we've basically been kind of evangelizing the use of model-based testing or visual models. So for us, a visual model is basically, it's no more complicated than a flowchart. So a user can come in, you can start to define your requirements in this kind of visual flowchart nature. You can get everyone on the same page because everyone can come in, they can view that visual image immediately. And the idea there is you can start applying critical thinking, you can start applying collaboration on your models and start introducing quality much earlier. Now, the other benefit with modeling is you can come in and you can start to generate your test cases and your automation immediately. Once you have a model, it's literally just click over the button, you get your test suite, which focuses around coverage. You can come out, you can generate your automation, you can publish it into all the different tools that Aurora was talking about earlier, because every company has millions of tools. A lot of teams work with different tooling, which is appropriate to them. And really what we're trying to do is we're trying to shift this focus back onto the outer loop, generating good assets and setting ourselves up for success much later on. Okay. Now, obviously, we're focusing on modeling, and you get a lot of benefit with that in terms of alignment, coverage tests, and everything from it. But where we've also been focusing on the moment, like everyone else, we've got very excited about AI, is actually, it turns out models are an extremely valuable resource for large language models in this case, right? Firstly, models are incredibly structured by definition, which makes them a fantastic resource for training LLMs and also using them as input into LLMs. Now, what that actually means is, firstly, what we can do is we can take things like requirements documents, and I'll show you this in a demo in a minute. We can take requirements documents, we can move them into the world of modeling. Okay, so you can move from something that's incredibly text heavy, takes a long time to interpret, into a visual model almost immediately, where you can then start to interrogate that and apply critical thinking. But also you can start, once you've got that model, you can start to do more advanced things. So you can start to use specific agents that have been created to go and apply different personas to those models. So it might be go and think about security on my model, go and think about security risks, and generating security test cases that may be relevant to the model that I have. Go and think about compliance, so look for gaps in compliance that I may have, like fields which potentially have PII in, etc. Think about performance, think about bottlenecks that might occur in my system. Just generally apply critical thinking and start to look at my model and look for gaps and potentially missing items that I have inside the requirement that I produced. Okay, so we're trying to build up this whole kind of ecosystem using AI around models for having this kind of AI-centric, notion for quality built on top of modeling. So I want to jump in and go through a bit of a demo, show you some examples. So I'm just going to flip this one over. Hopefully that's coming up. So I want to jump in firstly and kind of look at what is a model, what does that entail? So here we have a model which is basically representing, this is for a mobile e-commerce system, okay? So, at the beginning, we have different devices we can connect into, we go through some kind of menu structure, we can log in, we can go through a catalog, a shopping basket, and at the end, we can go through a checkout process, right? Now, the first point of call is what you're going to see here is everything is incredibly visual. Okay, that is what modeling is all about. And that visual nature is no more complicated than just looking at a flowchart. Okay. Now, what the good thing about modeling is it enables collaboration. So you can have users come into a model, you can generate them, you can open it up, and you can start to look at that model and see what are the gaps in this model. Are we covering everything that we need to inside here? And what we typically find is that when an organization moves into modeling, the immediate value is it starts to get them thinking critically about a process. So an organization we're working with at the moment, they're incredibly big. Well, their whole business model is around corporate training courses. That's what they deliver. So for them, they came into the modeling exercise. They started creating their models of the application and the different training courses they provide. And what they actually found was by getting everyone on the same page and just going through that modeling process, thinking about boundary analysis, thinking about the different routes I can work my way through a system, just by going through that modeling process, they actually found a number of defects just going through that. Okay, So I think forcing critical thinking and forcing collaboration are two big, often overlooked benefits of modeling. Okay. The other benefit here is what you're going to see is we've got lots of kind of components that are chaining together to build up into this end-to-end scenario. So I can come in here and I can click this expand button. And what that is going to do is it's going to expand my model, and it's going to go off into all the different routes that kind of exist in here. Okay. Now, this is kind of the concept of componentization. Okay. In a lot of tools out there, especially in the testing space, it's all about just lists upon test steps, and it's kind of like a bit of a spreadsheet. One of the often overlooked things is that actually, a lot of the time when you're testing, it's a lot of the same of the same. I need to get up to a certain point in my application so I can start testing the piece that I actually want to get to. So in modeling, we have this concept of componentization. Build something once you need to test that again, just drag in a building block, reuse it, and then chain it together into kind of the end-to-end flow that you want to get to. Okay. Now, one of the pieces I want to focus on today in particular is looking at kind of software requirements and thinking about how we can move them into the world of modeling. So we've basically developed an AI agent that can take textual-based requirements and it can create kind of a whole folder full of models for them. Okay. Now, one of the business challenges that we're trying to solve here, and we were just doing a project with a large consultancy in the UK, it would take them typically a day to go from a requirements document into having test cases and having that requirement specifically tested. Okay, so they wanted to apply RAI, they wanted to apply modeling to that process to speed up the amount of time it takes them to go from a requirements document into test cases and ultimately having that requirement tested. Okay. So I'm going to start with something very simple just to start with. Okay, this is more of a paragraph than a requirements document. But basically, this is for a car rental process. A customer wants to rent a car. They can pick up, they can return, it presents available cars. There's a booking confirmation, otherwise an error message is displayed. Okay, pretty trivial. I'm going to come into our modeler engine here, and I'm going to go off. I'm going to select to import that particular document. We're going to hit the next button. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to look at that requirement, okay, or description we have here, and it's going to select kind of representatives it thinks would be good to be split up into different models. Okay, so here we've got different components, selecting the location, selecting the date, car availability, the driver details, payments processing, booking confirmations, error handling, etc. Okay, so these are all of our kind of components. Fantastic. Let's hit the next button. What that is going to do is it's going to take all of those components it's identified from our requirement, and it's going to build them into separate, distinct models we have. So I'm just going to click a few of these just to open them up, just so we can see what they look like. So let's just select, the top 3 is fine. And then let's hit the next button. Now, what you'll see here, firstly, this is the model for car availability. So we'll see here, we start the process, we input a location and date range. Either there's cars available and we can go through to the next step, or there's no cars available and we have to terminate with an error message. Okay. There's another component here for payments processing. So we start off, we input our payment details, we go through our payment gateway. We either end up with payment success or we end up with payment failure. There's another model here for driver details. We enter a name, an age, either they're old enough or they're not old enough. We go for our driving license, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the real value here is we have gone from a pretty simple paragraph here where there is a lot of ambiguities, there is a lot of incompleteness, and our AI agent has come in, tried to fill in some of the gaps to build out this kind of workflow of our different components that may exist within this. What it's also done is it's built out the full end-to-end chain here as well. So it's tried to take all of these components that have been produced, and it has tried to connect them into a much bigger end-to-end chain with everything built out as part of it. And that's just as part of kind of the AI which exists. Okay. Now, I want to show a bit more of a complete example here, because I think this really shows the power of kind of AI and where everything's heading in for kind of AI-driven quality. So here we have a much bigger requirements document. This is 4,600 words, it's 15 pages. So, I mean, even by comparison to the enterprise world, this is probably still quite small. This is for kind of a CRM system for purchasing energy. So there's things in here like customers, shipping, marketing, product owners, etc. I think if I scroll down to the bottom, there's details in here about different use cases that might exist, like logging in, registering, placing orders. You know, you get the idea. There's a requirement document here with lots and lots of detail in. Now, the cool thing about what I can do here is I can come in, I can import that document. So this one, we'll hit the next button. And what that is going to do is it's going to do exactly the same process. It's going to go off, take this requirements document we have, and it's going to go and break it up into different components that exist. So here we've got everything that exists in that document: user authentication, products, order processing, billing, content, access control, search engine, you know, the list goes on down. If I hit next, what our AI will do is it will pick up all of these components that is picked out from this requirement document, and it will break it up into the different components and the different models that it believes should be built to represent this particular system we have, right? So we'll see here we've got about 15 models that have been created. Let's pick off a few of these. Let's pick off order processing. Let's look at customer support. Maybe let's pick off one more. Product catalog. So if we look at customer support, you know, we request, it's either valid or invalid. We go through, there's various notifications, there's customer feedback that happens at the end. We look at order processing and split that up into a few more details. Now, the interesting thing about what this has also done is it's built a little mini requirement summary of what this model should represent. So this model is for the order processing, and it has a bunch of information here about the objectives, the requirements, and everything that this order processing system should achieve. Now, what we also have in the tool is the ability to come off and use a co-pilot. Now, what this co-pilot can do is it can basically come in and we can start to apply different personas on top of this model. One of the ones I want to look at in particular at the moment is we have one for looking at requirement gap analysis. Okay, so we can paste our requirement into here and we can ask our co-pilot to go off and say, hey, given this model that's been produced, and this may be produced by a human as well, and given the requirement we have, go away and look for gaps in the model, look for misinterpretations and things that have not been modeled correctly. Okay, so this is where we're kind of augmenting our modeling engine to say, go away and how can we improve the quality of what we have? And given that, it's come back with several scenarios here that it sees are missing. So in our requirement, we had something about orders being initiated by the sales agent. It believes that's missing. We have the ability to go and cancel orders. That's missing from the model that we have. So we can go through and we can start to augment the model we have with AI to help us improve and apply critical thinking to what we have and ultimately improve the quality process that we're delivering. I just want to go through and show one more example here, if I can find it. Yeah, this one. So this is a bit more of a simple model. Okay, this is basically for a login system in an e-commerce application. Okay, so we go to a URL, we enter different emails, different passwords, and at the end, we either end up authenticated or in an error state. Now, we can use our co-pilot in here to do all sorts of different things. I could come in here and I could say, okay, go away, and I want you to pretend to be a security analyst, and I want you to take my model and identify potential security risks that may occur in my login flowchart that I have. Okay, so this is going to use the power of AI agents and persona-driven agents to go and overlay different personas onto the model that I have. So here, this has come back and it said, okay, you need to think about SQL injection. You need to think about password strength verification. In my model, I'm literally just got enter password. So maybe I want to think about different password strengths that I can embed in here. Maybe I want to think about role-based access control. So it's making recommendations for me that I may not have thought about in my model with security, in mind to go and improve that. I can also come in here and I can ask the co-pilot to go and improve my model for me. So I could come in here and say, okay, this is the login system as it exists today. I want you to add capabilities that the user has to enter a captcha form. Okay, so we're doing some kind of user verification now as part of our user authentication process. And what my AI is basically going to do is it's going to go away, take the model we have today, given I've given this new requirement of something that's going to exist, it's going to go off and see and try to update my model for me, given this new requirement that's there. And it'll go off and perform that, hopefully come back and add that into my model. So here we go. Here we've got enter captcha that's been added. I can see the 3 blocks that have been added. Enter captcha. Is the captcha valid? Okay, if it's not, we're going to end up with some kind of error. If it is, we can go through and we can perform the authentication step that comes out. Okay. So we've been working with AI to add in lots and lots of capabilities to augment modeling and augment that journey to creating models, create better models, and also use AI-driven personas to help us think about things that perhaps we don't have expertise in ourselves to go and augment them. Now, once we have a model that we're happy with, we can then move into the standard kind of modeling benefits that exist. So we can hit the generate button here and we can generate all our different test cases through a particular model. So here we've got 4 paths, which give us full coverage across our authentication system. I can then come out and I can say, take these test cases I have and go and export them into an external tool like Jira. So this is going to go away and create test cases inside our Jira test case management tool. And we'll see that that has just created them. It's been successful. And that should come back with Jira tickets here. So I can open these up and I can view the different test cases which revolve around my login system. I can also come away here and I can say, go and take the model I have, go and produce automation scripts and go and execute test automation. Now, what you'll see is while we're doing this, we actually have a links here, and those links tell us how the model and how the Jira ticket and how our requirements link into test cases. And that's where we start to move into the world of traceability. So Aurora, if you're okay, I want you to talk a little bit about traceability and some of the benefits you see, if that's okay.
Sure, absolutely. So I must say I'm really, really impressed. Wait, I need to share my screen. I think I'm sharing. I'm really, really impressed. Oops. There we go. There we go. How you use AI, the Gen AI, the AI to get this automation, this productivity, or this augmentation. It's going to be everywhere, right? We do also have Gen AI. I'm not going to talk about that today. What I want to talk is like, how do we continue this journey of removing bottlenecks so you can improve your different value stream? How do we continue after doing all the tests? So what I'm showing here is a pipeline. It can be any pipeline. This is from Jenkins. It's just to illustrate that before deploying into production or sub-production, you always need a change request. Okay, so I'm going to skip whatever happens in the beginning. So all these Jira stories, tickets, all the tests and everything, this is done. So now we are ready to deploy into production. Let's go to take production because it makes more sense. So this is ServiceNow. And from ServiceNow, what we do, we don't replace the tools. We connect from the CI/CD pipeline. And from every single step in your orchestrator, maybe Jenkins or whatever you use, we actually start collect all this traceability and evidence and absolutely everything. Like, for instance, test results. We can also collect the different software quality results, things like how many lines of code have been modified, how many vulnerabilities we have, code smells, anything that you need, right? We gather the artifacts, any commit, all the code that has been changed, the previews, the after, so you can even compare when something goes wrong, all the work items, absolutely everything. So at the moment that before deploying into production, without the developer having to change tools or thinking about that, automatically we will change a change request, and I will show it here. Change request, call it ticket if you want, is just a form where you gather. Usually you have to do it manually, and then you have to go to the CAP, and then the CAP approves, and then you can implement. But as I said, 80% of the tickets could be auto approve. So you might have a different ITIL process, similar, it doesn't matter, this is a standard. So we gather absolutely all the information. If I scroll down, we can see, we always say when the change request has been automatically created. And if I scroll down below, this is interesting part for traceability. ServiceNow is very well known for having the CMDB in the core of the platform, the configuration management database. And when you modify something, you get the requirements. I need to modify something. Yeah, I have all my tests. I test it. You're modifying a configuration item. That is supporting a business process, or it's supporting a service or a digital product. And we want to understand if something goes wrong, what is going to be also the impact. Because we have the CMDB, we can understand that impact. We want to understand what we are doing, if we are fixing bugs, changes, what are we doing? Maybe it's a problem from your IT process. We want to gather absolutely everything from your CI/CD pipeline. Automatically, this is done, so the user doesn't have to do it. We're talking about easily a 30% increase in productivity for your different developers, removing all these manual tasks. And the artifact, all the test summaries with all the information, right? And then you can decide which change requests they get automated or not with the automated policy. So because every company is going to have a different threshold and it's going to have a different policy, and you have to determine. And you can also know the experience of the developer who is pushing that change and the karma to understand if you can trust them more or less based on the experience. They did a great job, so most likely the impact is going to be low and you don't have to do a rollback. So in these automated change policies, you can define when a change request gets automatically rejected, when it gets auto-approved, or maybe when you need a manual approval and determine the people. And that doesn't require coding. It's very simple. You just determine your roles. So based on the code smells, more than 55, which is very high, should not be approved, reject, or more than 3 vulnerabilities, or maybe my test passing percentage is really, really low. That should not be auto-approved, right? So you can determine your own rules. So we make it very, very simple. And also for the integrations, we offer, in our ServiceNow platform, we offer more than 1,500 out-of-the-box connectors. We call them SPO. And if we don't have an out-of-the-box, you can always build your own integration using the API. So that should be okay. And then, as I said before, when you need to understand what happened from that Jira ticket issue or story, whatever name you use, to actually the end, it's been deployed, we can collect all the metrics. We will leverage DORA metrics, the flow metrics, so you can have the traceability. And this is important. Why is that important? Well, we see customers in the space. I don't have the outcomes or productivity metrics from the testing. I will ask you now, James. But when we talk about automating change, we're talking about productivity, automation, and improvement. 30% of the admin task is removed, but like increasing or being able to deploy 2,500 code releases per week, which is insane. That comes from a online retail store. It was a company around 6 billion, 7,000 revenue, 7,000 employees. And you can imagine that an online website, if it's down or you have a performance issue, that it's a significant loss on possible revenue, right? But what do you do when you want to buy something and it's not going through, it's hanging or it's down? You just go to another website. You don't wait a lot. Maybe you try a couple of times, and if it's not solved in less than a couple of minutes, you just go away, right? So they were able, through that change automation and traceability, they were able to revert their middle time to resolution from 12 minutes when DevOps developers, they were pushing code. It was not properly tested. And then the website was down or something was not working. It was taking like 12 minutes. And you say, oh, that's a pretty good time, right? The middle time to resolution, 12 minutes. That's a lot for an online retail company. And they reduce it to less than 2 minutes. So you can imagine that the impact on revenue is also high. We also have financial entities like Nomura. We also have DNB, a Nordics financial entity in Norway. They're very, very important as well. And they also implement this automation. And again, we are talking about improvements that 30 minutes, just copy pasting all the information and gathering all the traceability and evidence and all the test use cases and all the test results is taking around 30 minutes. Now you can have it in just 30 seconds, less than 1 minute. And that means that the bottleneck and the slowness that you were mentioning, guys, at the beginning, the poll, can also be reduced. So the lead time to deploy is around 1 week. And this is based because of your window for deployment, not just because, the process is slow. So that's in a nutshell. I don't know what your thoughts are, James. I don't know if you see, if you share kind of the same kind of productivity outcomes for your testing.
Absolutely. I think as well, those statistics you were talking about there, Aurora, it's all cumulative as well. Like you look at organizations now, 20 years ago, it was all waterfall, right? Like we ship once a year, we have a whole new product. Now organizations are shipping, once a week at the latest. Some of them are shipping multiple times a day into their cloud environments. And, that 30 minutes, if you're doing it every day, that adds up to a really big number really quickly, right?
It is.
So I think, absolutely, yeah. I mean, you've got to get that under control if you're going to move fast and deliver with speed at quality. But I think also, from our perspective, I mentioned that project we were involved with requirements, where we introduced AI. That organization, it took about 7 or 8 hours on average to move from a requirements document into having test cases for that requirement. At the time, I think we were using GPT 3.5, so it's not even as good as it is now. And literally, they went from requirement to models to covered sets of test cases. So they were better test cases as well. And that ended up taking them about 45 minutes. So already that's a huge saving, right? 8 hours down to 45 minutes. And that number's only going to get better as the technology evolves. Like the pace and the speed at which everything is moving in the AI world at the moment is incredible.
Yeah.
And I really think the results, now they're great. It's amazing. Like we can do so much more, but it's only going to get better, right? Look at where we were last year. Look at where we are now. And the increase is just phenomenal. Like it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's very interesting. There is like a generic metric in the space saying like if you adopt AI in multiple places, not just text to code, and as you said it, it's gonna have hallucinations. And also, if you're a bad developer and you use Gen AI to create all your code and then to troubleshoot it, I don't know what kind of disaster you can have. So you still need to have certain knowledge, but just implementing automation and implementing as much AI as you can. We're talking about, time saving around 50% and increasing productivity also around 50% with everything combined, right? So that's can accelerate innovation. Again, people ask me about replacing jobs. No, that's wrong. You never replace jobs. You replace manual tasks. This is tedious and doesn't give also a good experience for the employee. So it's an overall that is actually accumulating and summing up. Oh, I didn't pay attention to the comments. So people, feel free to comment in the chat box that we have here. Let us know what you think. If you also share the same pains, questions that you might have, I think we also have a box for questions. And we are also going to review all of that at the end.
Yeah, maybe that's a good point, Tom, to pick up the questions. Yeah.
We're actually 1 minute away from the end time, so I think we have had some questions in. We've covered an awful lot of ground, so thank you both so much for that. We have had questions coming in, and what I'll do is I'll pick them up, and Derek will come back to you via email or how to reach me. So I think probably the thing to focus on now is sort of next steps from today. And Aurora's kindly compiled a resource pack full of content on DevOps, BSM, and change velocity. If you like that, we've got a poll going on at the moment. Hit yes, we'll send it to you via email. There'll also be a post-webinar poll where you'll be able to request that resource pack there as well. We will also be in touch tomorrow with the webinar recording and slides. And if you do ask any questions in the chat box, we will follow up with those via email as well. I think at this point, we're at the hour. So all the steps to be said, really, a huge thank you to everybody for joining. And James and Aurora, thank you both so much for the really interesting presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Aurora. Really appreciate it.